The next speaker is a young millennial, and she is a colleague of mine, wonderful person, great speaker. She's coming with you, but she will explain that herself. And she's going to kind of talk to us about how do we deal with the older generation as millennials. And everybody here obviously is a little millennial friendly. So there are age differences, and how do we deal with them? And she's going to talk to us about tips and tricks here. Lydia.
Hi everyone, thank you so much, Yola, for introducing me. Indeed, coming in package of two. So I'm Lydia and this is Lucas. He's about 7.5 months old. And hopefully none of you have to experience delivery on stage, but I'm sure I'm in a good hands here. So as Yola mentioned, in the last 3 years working for Hills, I was deeply and passionately involved in a project that was all about understanding the millennial generation, millennial vets, millennial female vets, as well as all other generations that are in the workplace today. And so I'm going to try and convey sort of a generational theory to you in a 30 minutes time, but I would encourage all of you to learn more about it as you fly back home and have that hopefully internet access on the airplane. So this is the image that came across when I was doing sort of research, and it just stuck with me as what a fascinating world we live today in. How amazing it is. So some will look at this picture and would say, oh my God, that one lady highlighted over there is the only one who is living the moment. She's the only one who's truly enjoying it and is not distracted by any other technology. Yet others would look at the picture and say, oh my goodness, she's so selfish. She is not sharing that moment with any one of her friends. And everybody else is awesome because all of their friends can experience the live streaming of whatever that exciting event is. And others would look at it and say, well, yeah, clearly there is a generational difference there. So let's talk a little bit about the generations. There are about 6 generations in total, but only 3 of them are really, truly, currently are in the workplace today. First is baby boomers, born between 1943 and 1960. Gen X are the next generation, or they're sort of stuck in between, 61 to 81, and then there are millennials, or Generation Y. Some of them refer to them as digital natives, 1984 to 2004. Now, and then there are clusters, and many of us are probably belonging to clusters. I'm sure you never heard about clusters. I have never heard about clusters before I started to look into this research. But clusters are people who are born within 3 to 5 years between those generational time frames. And there's a lot of debate about when generation finishes, when another starts, and honestly there is not a cut that is existing today. So clusters are the people who are playing the role of mediators. They have characteristics of both generations in between, and they play the role of mediators and sort of cement the generations together. Now let's have a quick poll and try to figure out in this audience what generations do we have present and how many clusters? So again, clusters, if you're born between 3 to 5 years from the beginning to start of each of the generations. Okay, so we don't have as many baby boomers. I expected that. We have a lot of Generation X. I did expect that, although if you ask Yola, he told me you are all 100% millennials, and I agree with him because all of you are probably young in mind and hearts, and certainly Yola is a clear millennial by himself. So we have a couple of clusters, and clearly the prevalent generation in this room is Generation X. So let's now talk about what defines the generation, what each generation, how they became who they are, and the why behind the what. So there are 3 elements that are important to take into consideration. The parenting. The parenting has changed dramatically from where we've been to where we are today. If you think about, those times when kids were easily placed at the back of the station wagon and traveled around with their parents, no seatbelts, no problems. Today, you're going to be pulled over by the cop, and he's going to come and check how tight the seatbelt or the car seat seatbelt is on your child. And if it's not tight, you're going to get a fine. The baby on board sign. Everybody is screaming around, I have a baby here. Don't touch my car. Don't come anywhere closer. I have a baby. It's very important. So the way we parented and the way the parents accepted children and their voice and how much opinion the children can express and what is the decision-making power in the family has changed dramatically. If you remember back to I think somebody was talking about, or was a big fan of Don Draper, I think the very first speaker. So if you think about Don Draper and his children, Sally and whomever the boy name was, they had no say. They did exactly what their parents did. It was very vertical. And yet today, if you go to purchase the car, the sales rep is not even talking to the parents. The sales rep is saying, hey kids, look at this wonderful DVD player on the back of the car. Look, these little fancy things over there. Oh, how awesome, the door is sliding this and this way. Kids are, Mama, I want this car. And they're not leaving that place without purchasing that particular minivan. So the whole situation and the impact of children within the family has changed. The second thing that impacts a lot what generation is about is the events that happened when kids were kids. And most importantly, how the society reacted to those events. Because when you're a kid, you don't really know what's happening. But you can see how your mom is reacting to it. You can see how your family is reacting to it. And you can see what's on TV, how everybody else is obsessed or angry with the situation. And you take it on board. And that becomes part of you. And the third one is when you are getting to that coming of age stage, when you can make your own decisions and you can analyze the situation and make your own point of view about it, that's another thing that defines you to one or another generation. So your own reactions to the events that happened when you were coming to age. And as I go through each of the generation, I'm going to point out a couple of those events that had an impact. So let's start with baby boomers. I know there are not so many of you in the room, but I think you're still dealing with them in the workplace. And today, baby boomers are anywhere between 52 to 70 years old. So in fact, in 2011, the first baby boomer started to reach the age of the retirement. And this will continue, although the economical situation forces many boomers to stay longer in the workplace. So I don't expect them to disappear anytime soon. So you'll have to deal with them for a little longer. So let's think about a representative from the baby boomer generation. Steve Jobs is from the baby boomers. And the baby boomers were growing up in the times when the war was over and finally things were getting better. Finally, people came back home, started to rebuild situations around, got houses, beautiful white fences, started to move to suburbs, life became a little better. There was this hope and optimism that finally there's going to be a better life for everybody. And so they grew up in a fairly wealthy environment, regardless whether you talk about United States or United Kingdom or any other country in the world. They are one of the wealthiest generations ever. And because they were in this perfect environment where they were kids, what was giving them the edge is this competition part, right? So then you start to say, okay, everything is good, so I might as well, compete with others, try to find things that bring that edge to you. So that also, some of the events that happened, of course, is the consciousness revolution, right? So as they were growing up, and they were raised by their moms, so moms were staying at home, but some of the movements started to happen in their lives. So the move in the feminist direction, the greenies, let's save the planet, and many other things where people were restructuring the social norms. And so the boomers grew up thinking that they want to shape and change the world to fit who they are. And they want to build processes around that reflect how they see the world. So every baby boomer is, and if you think about the political environment today, majority of our politicians are representatives from the baby boomer generation. Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, everybody is from there. And this competition is still in play. If you don't have the same beliefs as I do, you are in a red camp, and I'm in a blue camp, and we're going to fight for it, because I think what I believe is the right thing to do. So a lot of political environment is driven by the generational characteristic of the baby boomers. So they love procedures. So in your workplace, majority of the boomers will try to create protocols and procedures that will reflect how they want things to happen. And they will drive and force everybody else to follow the rules. But they recreated the rules for themselves. And they like to revolutionize everything that they touch. And they live to work. Work is very important for them. It defines who they are, and they're very, very goal-oriented. So when you deal with baby boomers, you have to take that on board. Although they do appreciate and understand the importance of balance, but they are not balanced themselves. Next generation is Generation X. So they came after the baby boomers, raised partially by one of the previous generations. And as they were growing up, many things have changed. Moms started to go to work. So females started to enter workforce. The divorce rates were the highest in the history than ever before. So what they were faced with is they were raised in this environment where parents didn't quite care about them because they had to work and bring the income back. And so they were left unsupervised, and they were left to make their own decisions and survive. And so they grew up to be these risk takers and this resilience and flexibility that comes with this survival mode that they are in. They were very independent because they were sent off to school in the morning, and moms were at work. They would come back from school. They'll find the key under the doormat. They'll go and get some food, and then they'll watch TV, MTV, for the rest of the day. And then when parents, and usually single mom, comes back home, they'll say, oh shit, I have to do homework, maybe. And the day repeated over and over and over again. So they again grew up very, very independent. Self-reliant because there was no one else there for them. And they loved fun because, boy, if you have no supervision, you can have a lot of fun. A little cynical because they've seen their moms and parents, if parents weren't divorced, working very, very hard and yet being laid off for no good reason. And so they became a little cynical of the governmental institutions, a little cynical about, I'm not going to be very loyal to you because I know that you can lay me off at any point in time. So I'm loyal to myself, and I'll be dedicated to making sure that I have all the knowledge to survive in this world. Now, they also grew up in the times when the technology started to be on the race. That's when the first computers came on board. And while some people say Gen Xers are not the most technologically savvy, they actually are pretty good. If you think about it, the progress in the technology came from this generation just as much as it now comes from the millennial generations. They were the ones pushing the beautiful phones that we have today, not the millennials. And so they adapted technology, and they use it very well. They're not native with it, but they're awesome with it. And we've seen some examples the other day. I mean, I could not beat you. I tried. I mean, I really, really tried. So, and work-life balance. Again, they have seen their parents working very hard and had no life. And so when they grew up, they decided, I'm going to be different. I want to have fun, and I want to have that balance. So they strive to actually get that balance in their lives. And then came millennials. So again, born between 81 and 2004, 82 and 2004, and everybody challenges the dates, so it actually doesn't quite matter. But when millennials grew up, generational theorists say that there is this pendulum that goes from one side to another. So when one generation reaches to the extreme, the next generation tries to pull the pendulum back and balance of the things. So the moment you go all 100% natural, next generation comes and says it's not sustainable, have to go back to, produced and manufactured and so on things. The moment one generation, like boomers and Xers, go into direction, drugs, sex, and rock and roll is everything what we know and how we want to live our lives, the next generation of millennials come back and say, you know what, cigarettes, sex, rock and roll is not a very sustainable way to live our lives, and we're going to not be on earth if we continue that way. So no, we're going to be very healthy, and we're going to eat healthy, and we're going to exercise, and we're going to do all the good things. So the generation balance each other with the time. So if you think back, the history does repeat itself in some form or shape. We've been through the cycles, and if you're really interested in history, you can find how each generation is sort of bringing something to the table, next generation balances it off, and so it continues. So millennials came on board, and the parenting style was very different. If you think today, you will not leave your child unattended at any point in time. My husband is Danish, and so when we had our baby, in Denmark it's totally fine to leave a baby to sleep outside of the restaurant when parents go and finally have this sort of a date night. And when I moved to US, and the first thing my friends told me, do not leave your baby unattended in front of the restaurant or you're going to go to jail. And I said, like, for what? Because you're not being a good parent. Oh, okay. So we pick up our kids from school. We go with them to the sport activities. Gen X didn't have that. No one went to their sport activities and cheered up for them. So the millennials grew up in the environment where some of their parents were Xers or early Xers. And they know what they were doing in the after-school activities when mom wasn't there. So they said, I'm not going to let my child do the same because it's not good for them. And so they grew up in a very overprotected environment, supervised, over-sheltered, protected from any problem, made believe that they can do everything in the world, absolutely everything. If they work hard and they go to all those activities and they study good and they have good grades, they're going to be superstars. And imagine what happens when you're raised in that way and you enter the real world and the world doesn't give a shit about it. Like literally. The world stands there saying, no one's going to protect you. I'm not going to have your back. Oh, you're tired today? That's your problem. Oh, you had a party yesterday? Good for you, but no, you're going to show up at 6 a.m. and you're going to have that, checkups or whatever night shift that you're going to do. No one cares. And that's where the frustration comes on, and the suicidal rates comes right on with it, right? Think about those poor millennials. They're one millennial in a clinic, and no one sort of supports them. No one pats them on the back saying, good job, well done, a little more, try it again. Because the world is different. So, and is it their fault? Not really. Because the Xers and the boomers made them this way. Now, some of the events that happened when the millennials were sort of growing up, things were actually good. Things were good. There was a 90s boom. There were again these white fences. The economy seemed to be doing well when they were children, so happy families could have all the toys in the world. It was good, life was good. And then as they were coming of age, things have changed. The economy fell down, literally fell apart. When many of them were graduating from the universities to nothing. No opportunities, no jobs. Things are really bad. 9/11 happened, the terrorism, the world sort of started to be this cruel phase. But despite that, they actually stayed fairly optimistic because they had that still, family protected thing inside of them or close to their hearts. So anyway, so they grew up fairly open-minded because, again, everything and everyone, it was this inclusive environment. In the kindergarten, kids are always working in teams, right? It's always, let's do it together. You and you come together, share the toys. It's great. If you think about the different races, it's okay. Different people have different skin colors. Life is good. There is no such thing as black and white and yellow and whatever. We're all the same. We're all nice, good people. So they're very open-minded, and they've seen a lot of options in front of them. And so they're very accepting of differences in how people look, in how people dress, in how people talk, different languages, different cultures. They're very open-minded to that. They're very upbeat and fast-paced because they had to catch up with all those crazy parents that took them to every single activity you can possibly imagine to make them better so that they're awesome. They're self-expressive usually, and clearly they think digital because many of them, when they were just still little kids, had access to the technology. And when you have it so early, it becomes part of you, so you don't think otherwise. And the next generation, if you think when they come on board, they're going to be totally digitally native. So things will again go into a whole different world and scenario for them. They're confident, but only on the surface, because that's how their moms and dads taught them to be, that they have to try harder and again and show the confidence, but behind there is still a lot of uncertainties, and they need that constant reinforcement. That's where the feedback comes in play. That's why they come and ask your feedback every minute. Did I do it right? Should I have injected it differently? Is that the right dose of the medication? Should I have prescribed this food? Is that the right protocol? Did I do the right thing? And they don't want to take risks. At least they don't want to take them on their own. And that's where the team comes again. Because it's much easier when you work in a team, because you can split not only the thinking, but also the responsibility. Because it wasn't not only you that made the decision. Choices and options. If you think about going to the shopping mall 20, 30 years ago and going to the shopping mall today, think about the amount of choices that they have. And so they're very comfortable with the choices, while some other generations are not as much, and they basically get frozen when they are forced with all these many choices to choose from. They expect attention because they always got it. So if you don't give them attention, they're sort of frustrated. They're task-oriented because they were living in the environment when, what's next? Give me the next task. I'm going to make it happen. What's next? And they also want to make a difference in the world. Because what they've seen, some of the events that that happened when they were growing up and coming of age, impacted their beliefs. And so they want to make a world a better place for everyone. Not just for themselves, but for everyone. So the society and the role of society is very important for the millennials. And they value life over work, because they want to cherish those good moments, and they always want to go back to that beautiful childhood that they had. And they want to repeat it, and they want to live in that bubble environment. So life is extremely important for them. They don't want to work 24 hours. They do not want to spend, overly too much time trying to, work harder on something. They want to live their lives. And work becomes the sort of serving the means for them. I have to pay my bills, and so I will go to work. Or it becomes a passion. I want to do something that I'm passionate about and make the difference in the world. So if you look at, across the generation, a couple of things that, sort of define them. So outlook, again, boomers were very optimistic, Gen Xers are very skeptical, and millennials are hopeful. Despite the crisis, despite the economy that they're living in, they still believe that the world will be better. In terms of authority, Gen Xers really don't care, like whatever. And millennials are going to be much more polite with authorities than the other generations. And leadership, again, if Gen X is very important, if you have a skill and you're good at what you do, I'm going to accept that. For millennials, it's all about the pulling together, right? Let's do it together in the teams, so that no one can be in a situation when things are falling apart and it's all blamed on them. Now let's take another quiz very quickly. So think about baby boomers and think about what do you think motivates them at work. If you say something to them, what would resonate with them and help them feel better? That they need it valued, that let's do it your way, or you will work with brilliant, brilliant people. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so we have two sort of winners between you need it and valued, let's do it your way, and you'll work with brilliant people. So, interestingly enough, so for boomers, it's very important to be needed and valued because they worked so hard. And so that feeling of, you value me, you appreciate me is extremely important. So there's no other better motivators for a boomer at work than to show them respect and show them that what they've done is amazing and that you value and appreciate that work. If you think about Gen Xers, they want to do it a little bit their way and, let's just do it your way and let them do it. For millennials, it's all about working with brilliant people. They get energy and they're really enjoying these opportunities to, that's why Google is so exciting for them because, there's all these technically brilliant people out there. And if you think about the work, again, For boomers, it's an exciting adventure, and so that's, I'm working, that's my life. For Gen Xers, it's a contract. I'm going to do it, I'm going to do a good job, but don't expect anything more of me. And then for millennials, like, I have to pay my bills, and I want to be passionate about it. So now as we know a little bit more about the generations, you probably have a question. So how do I communicate better with them, right? So Yola told you I'm going to give you all the answers. He lied. I don't have an answer. All I can tell you is that all you need is online. Go find it. So there is plenty, like so much information out there about generations. But I'll give you some hints and tips on where to search. So we want to make a connection. So there is no right or wrong when you're dealing with multiple generations. And not a single generation will give you an answer or bring the solution to the table. It's about working together. So what can we do? If you think about working with boomers, and if you many of them probably are owners of the clinics and are at the highest position at this point in time, unless they already retired and passed it on to the Gen Xers, show them respect. Make sure that you demonstrate that they know more than you and you are willing to learn from them. They have more experience, and that is the fact, than any other generation. So show them that respect and let them feel appreciated and valued. In terms of communications, choose face-to-face meetings. They're not really good with technology, and they are admitting it. So meet with them, and if you want to have a really decent conversation or coaching conversation, make it a one-on-one, because that's when you're probably going to get the best out of the boomer. Give people from that generation your full attention. It's so easy to be on the phone and be distracted by other things, but they really cannot handle the multitasking millennials. It's really tough for them. They cannot handle when people switch from one topic to another and talk about one thing, and then but there's also that thing. They get confused, and it goes beyond them. So give them full attention. Make sure that you're very, carefully, thoughtfully putting the facts on the table. And then learn the history. Because what happens, millennials come to the clinic and they say, I want to change this is not right, I don't like that, this is old-fashioned. But what they don't do is they don't go back and try to understand how this clinic was set up, what happened, what led to this event. So it's important to understand the history before you come and say, let's swipe everything and change everything the way I want. And trust me, boomers will appreciate it a lot if you put the facts behind and you understand what happened before you came on board. When you deal with Xers, get to the point and get there fast. They don't want to waste time. They don't want to take these buzzwords and going around back and forth. Just tell them what you want. Tell them when you want it by, and let them do their job. And they'll do it. Just don't distract them. Use email. They are not big fans of meetings, so use email, send a quick note, say, I need this by this time, and let it be. Minimize face-to-face unless it's needed. They don't really want to interact all that much with you, although they're fairly social creatures. Give them space. So let them be. Don't micromanage them. Do not spend, all the time saying, oh, did you do this right? How exactly did you put that, drugs together? Or how did you make the recommendation? How did you come up with that idea? They absolutely hate it. Forget dues paying. So they don't care, if you value them or not. Don't try to tell them how great work they're doing. They are well beyond it. And then lighten up. They work hard and they play hard. So it's important that the work becomes a little bit of a fun environment. If it's all boring, it's not fitting with their values. So give a little bit of fun and be a little lighter. Millennials, they want to be challenged because they want to do the best work they can, and they're constantly in this notion of what's next. So you have to bring them next challenge or they're getting bored. They want to be asked for their opinion because they want to play in the teams and they want to feel as part of the team. So ask them, what do you think about this? How do you think we should do it? Be their champion, like their parents have always been for them. If you're not their champion, they'll feel very, very frustrated and disappointed and feel bad, and you don't want them to do any bad things. Provide timely feedback. And the interesting thing here is millennials need feedback to be sure that they are not doing the wrong thing. And they need it all the time, like all the time. You doing it right? Yes. Tell me what, okay, yes, that's okay. What diagnosis you thinking of? That one, that's okay. What food are you trying to recommend? That's a good decision. They want the reassurance all the time. While Xers, they don't want that. They want occasional feedback just to make sure that they're overall staying on track. Be fun. Now with millennials, taking it to a whole next level. If you're not having the games and funny parties at the office and great New Year's celebrations and so on, you're not making it for them. So you have to integrate that into your practice and make it a day-to-day activity. Be transparent. They do not like when you're not telling them the whole truth as well. So tell them how things are in the reality, and they will very much appreciate that. Allow them to experiment, and you'll be amazed what they can do for you. If you tell them an interesting task and you tell them, go and explore this and come back to me and tell me how we can change things, they'll do an awesome thing for you. And another thing is show your personality to them, because they appreciate the authenticity. For whomever you are, if you're true to who you are and you show it to them, they will love you for that. So in order to bring this all together, things that you can do at work to create a better communication among the generations is to learn about the generations. So go online and read about every generation and understand why they are who they are. And then adapt your attitude. And when you do that, you will start communicating more effectively with them. And this conversation will start. And to start conversation, the best thing I can recommend you is run a seminar or a lunch and learn in your clinic that will explain all the people that work for you or in your clinic what those generational differences are. And it will change the way you work, and it will bring people together, and it will absolutely transform your practice. So do that activity, learn or find someone who can come and present at your clinic in an engaging way so that everybody understands it. Leverage the strength of each unique generation. Don't try to make Xers be like millennials or millennials to be like Xers. Let them be who they are and leverage their strength. And continue to build bridges and continue to sort of explore and educate people about the differences and support their values. And I know it always seems impossible until it is done, but if you start your pathway and you go that route and you do these educational activities in your clinic, I think you will succeed, and you will see that great difference. And just before we go, there's one last poll. I know you're hitting me out of the stage.
I always have to drag you off stage.
I know. Do you want to try?
Okay, do a poll. I can carry you too.
Okay. Let's go. Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Sorry. Okay. Jesus. Yeah. He gained a little weight. Okay. Okay.
Can we have our next symposium about back problems, please?
So a quick poll, just think about what you're going to do next. As you come out of here, what is the thing that you can do in your clinic to make a difference and to bring the generations together?
Did you know that I periscoped you?
Was that on Periscope?
No, not this.
Oh, thanks
before.
God.
Yeah. Only you said something with an S, which I didn't periscope.
Okay, the sheet word.
All right.
Sorry about that. So great stuff. I think you're all going to do awesome in making sure that there is no generational conflict, at least in your environmental space.
Okay, goodbye.
Yes.
Thank you. Great.